So thank you for coming to the Bearshot Community Forum. Thank you all for being here. This is really exciting. My name is Sean Franks, and I'm with the Oregon Strong Voice Southern Oregon Coalition. It's a coalition of community groups and labor unions, and we meet monthly, and we have conversations about how we can work together to build a stronger Oregon. I wanted to give you a little bit more in depth, or go a little bit more in depth about the mission. And so I'm going to read this for you. Oregon Strong Voice is a statewide network of regional alliances between labor unions and community groups. We work together to maximize our collective power at the grassroots level to build a stronger Oregon. And this coalition work is really important. I mean, I think all of us are strong. All these organizations that you see up here, I'll go into a little bit more detail, the groups that are involved. But I think all of these organizations do a lot of great things. But I think when we come together and we figure out what we can work towards collectively, when we go to the legislature, that's a lot more powerful. People are seeing, it's not only one issue that folks are bringing forward, it's multiple issues, and they're all interconnected, and they affect working families. Bearshot is a coalition of groups similar to Oregon Strong Voice. It's a coalition of groups from around the state coming together to take on these issues that are holding our communities back from getting ahead, from achieving the American dream. And we're excited to be having these community forums around the state. So this one's happening here tonight in Medford, but there's also community forums going on this week across the state where folks like this will gather in the community and talk about how we can get involved. And so I think it's going to be really powerful.
We're talking about profiling that when someone is stopped solely based on their race, their ethnicity, their religious affiliation, their national origin, language, housing status, sexual orientation, or gender identity. And this is an issue that we've seen nationally, of course, a lot of tension between communities and law enforcement, a lot of issues about police militarization and brutality, and we haven't seen a lot of solutions being brought forward. And I think here in Oregon, and especially here in Southern Oregon, we have a unique opportunity to be proactive, and we can take action before another tragedy has to happen. And so we're doing that in a couple of ways. One of them is at the state level with some legislation that addresses 3 core issues that we have in Oregon. And these are kind of preliminary. This isn't the silver bullet, but this is where we have to start if we're going to get a handle on the issue of profiling. And so what the situation that we're in as a state is that we have no statute defining and banning profiling by law enforcement in the state of Oregon. We have no requirement of tracking data. And so when you come to places like Southern Oregon and somebody says, oh, we don't have a problem with profiling in our community, there's no way to refute that unless you have that direct experience. And we know that the folks who have that direct experience are less likely to share those experiences if it's not widely recognized as a problem, if they don't feel like their community recognizes it as a problem and cares about it. So we want some data tracking so we can get a handle on what's really going on and start addressing it where it needs to be addressed.
Has anybody here been sick in the last year? Okay, had the kids sick? Had they missed work because of it? How many of you had paid sick days? Not very many. It was very surprising to me to actually see the statistics about this, that 47% of the private sector, the working people here, have no access to paid sick days. And 71% of lower wage workers have paid sick days. The lower wage workers too are especially the people who have direct person-to-person contact. They serve our food, they care for our kids, they cut our hair. These are the folks who can least afford to miss a day of work. And oftentimes, it forces them to make the tough choice about, do I stay home and care for my kid? You can't go to school. You can't send your kid to school when you're sick. You can't send them to daycare. A lot of folks, especially like single parents or whatever, don't have a lot of resources to find childcare. Or if I'm sick, how do I get to a doctor? So they have to make the really tough choice about, okay, do I stay home without pay, maybe not be able to make my rent or keep my heat on, or do I go to work sick? What do I do with my kid? Pass my illness around. It's a tough choice, and people who go to work sick a lot, it's a slower recovery. Oftentimes, if you can't take a sick day off to go to, get care with your doctor, you end up in urgent care or the ERs, which is very costly and adds to your financial burden. There is a huge financial impact for folks. And also for business, it has a financial impact. People who go to work sick are less productive. They tend to share their illnesses with coworkers, which increases the number of folks who are out ill or not working as productively as they should. So having paid sick leave is a good idea, and it's a right idea for working folks.
We know that Oregonians work very hard to support themselves and their families, but when wages are low and opportunities are scarce, hard work is not enough. It's not enough to make ends meet. And many workers right here in this community struggle just to get by. They struggle to pay for food and for housing, and the idea of saving for emergencies or for the future just seems like a far-off dream when wages are this low. And so we want to make sure that all of these families have a fair shot at getting ahead, and for that we need a living wage. So I'm Christy, you know that. This is Evan. We're both active in 15 Now Oregon, and especially in 15 Now Southern Oregon, and that's the group leading the fight to end poverty wages in our state. And we're inspired to be involved, to put in all of these volunteer hours, because for decades, Oregon's working families have been falling behind. Wages have been staying about the same. Meanwhile, the cost of living has been going up and up and up. And we're told that Oregon's economy has recovered from the recession, but really 95% of that money has gone to the top 1% of earners. Working families have not been seeing the gains of the recovery. And meanwhile, nearly half of all new jobs in this state pay less than a living wage, pay poverty wages. And there are 9 people looking for work for every living wage job that is available. So again, this is not about hard work, this is about a lack of opportunity and low wages. So as a result, and I know Sean touched on this earlier, but it's worth repeating, more than 500,000 hardworking Oregonians are living in poverty, including a disproportionate number of women and people of color. And out of necessity, these folks turn to government assistance to help pay for their food and their housing. And that has a cost to society, it has a cost to taxpayers, $1.7 billion a year that is essentially subsidizing the profits, the bottom lines of these large low-wage employers like Walmart and McDonald's. We don't like that, do we?
No!
But if we make Oregon's minimum wage a living wage, we can allow working people the dignity of feeding and housing their families without having to turn to the government for help. And our local economies, our small businesses here in Southern Oregon will benefit when people have more money in their pockets to spend. And when we have less poverty in our communities, that will strengthen Southern Oregon too. So we're doing a lot of work organizing to make this happen because of course we know these kinds of changes don't happen without community organizing. So Evan's going to tell you about the work that's happening locally and statewide.
Thank you, Christy. So 15 Now Southern Oregon is growing. Just a little over a month ago, our field team had its first real big planning meeting for getting out in Ashland and Medford. And we started talking to folks about a $15 minimum wage for Oregon and why this is important to workers, small businesses, and our economy as a whole. Some of our volunteers are minimum wage workers themselves, and we'll see this impact directly. That's 500,000 workers in Oregon who would see these benefits immediately. But the idea is, of course, this is a baseline wage. I mean, we're saying $15 an hour is the minimum for what you need to earn in order to be able to survive in this economy and in this age.
He asked me when he talked to me about doing this tonight to start out with my own retirement security story, and on the top of one of the flyers it says, "I'm going to work until I die. That's my retirement plan. I'm going to work until I die." Because I'm a low-wage worker and currently we don't have retirement security, and well, I saved $8 once, but you know, that's really about the extent of my savings. You know, and it used to be in the United States that if you worked hard during your career, that you could count on a secure retirement. Americans had the promise of the three-legged stool: Social Security, pensions, and personal savings, to help them live comfortably after a lifetime of work. Now, 47% of Oregonians don't have a retirement system provided by their employer. Today's retirement is risky. The economic downturn and mismanagement by Wall Street has cut into many Oregonians' nest eggs. Confusing. It's hard for busy working people to figure out how much to save, where to invest, or how to monitor performances. In addition, many consumers don't realize they're paying high fees that eat away at their savings. They're also out of reach. Nearly half of working Oregonians don't have access to a retirement plan at work. Now, almost 33% of Oregonians rely solely on Social Security when they retire. That translates to about $1,300 a month on average, which forces people to rely heavily on social services just to survive. If we don't do something about the oncoming retirement crisis, Oregon will not be able to deal with the influx of seniors retiring into poverty in the future. So why this legislation is so important, why it's needed now: the economic crisis has put a secure retirement at risk for every Oregonian. For young people, many are graduating with high levels of educational debt and going into jobs where retirement plans aren't offered. Savings now and taking advantage of compounded interest will go a long way for securing their future. For working families, changing jobs and the economic pressures of paying for health care and child care means that many families aren't allowed, don't have enough savings or aren't tracking their retirement savings. A portable plan that allows people to save no matter where they are working will simplify the process for many. For small businesses, it's complicated and costly for small businesses to offer retirement plans to their employees. Most small businesses don't currently offer retirement saving plans to their employees, but they wish that they could. For women, retirement savings aren't equal opportunity. The wage gap, a longer life expectancy, and time spent outside the workforce to care for family members means that women have less opportunity to save for their future. For people of color, workers of color are less likely to work for employers that provide them with a retirement plan, and pay inequality means that they have less opportunity to save. Only about 37% of African Americans have retirement savings through a system for their employers, and only about 33% of Latinos do. For aging Oregonians, as they near retirement, many older adults realize they don't have enough saved to live securely. 1/3 of Oregonians aged 45 to 64 have less than $25,000 in savings.
So ban the box, who here knows what that means when we say ban the box? Wow, all right. So someone, your prize will be a piece of pizza. What is the box? Everyone gets pizza, so it's really special. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? Right, it's that little box on job and housing applications that asks whether someone has ever been convicted of a crime or incarcerated, or in some cases whether they've ever been arrested. So who here knows someone who has ever been arrested, incarcerated, convicted of a crime? A few of us? Okay. Yeah, there are 70 million people in the United States that have been through the criminal justice system in some way, whether it's just being arrested, being convicted of a crime, being put through a community supervision program, or on probation of some kind. And that box on job and housing applications is a huge barrier for folks that are looking for jobs. And a lot of employers immediately toss out applications that have that box checked. And right now, under Oregon law, they can do that, and that it's legal to discriminate against folks based on that criminal history. And aside from that, it also has a chilling effect on folks that are looking for work. If they know that they're going to be scrutinized over this, or they're probably just going to get tossed out right away, they're a lot less likely to fill out those applications. And these are qualified applicants who, in every other way, are perfectly suited for the job. And research affirms that having a criminal record and applying for a job reduces the chance of being called back by 50%. For white job applicants without criminal history, about 34% received a callback. With a criminal history or record of any kind, that number dropped to 17% that received a callback. For African Americans, it was 14% that received a callback without criminal history, and 5% that received a callback with criminal history. And I think we need to recognize the discrepancy that exists there between whites with a criminal history and African Americans without a criminal history. But because it's so much harder to get a job with the box, 83% of previously incarcerated men need help from their families to make a living, which is a financial burden for 50% of those families, and a financial hardship for 30% of those families. And as I mentioned, we know there are disproportionate impacts. This doesn't impact everyone in our state, in our communities equally. Just as a quick example, of all the Oregonians who are currently incarcerated, 11% are African American, or incarcerated, or in a community supervision and probation program of some kind. 11%. However, only 2% of Oregon's population is African American. And so we see that huge discrepancy, and the reason is, it's pretty obvious. It's black youth are disproportionately arrested for crimes that all youth commit, that are common to all youth.
Can we have one more round of applause for the speakers that came up here? And I really want to thank all you all for being here.